The Clary ship hung in Earth orbit like a dark purple teardrop against the blue planet. Captain Sung stood on the observation deck, his thin violet fingers trembling slightly as he stared at the readouts. The radiation sensors were screaming warnings that should have indicated certain death, yet the planet below teemed with life. "Captain, these readings must be wrong," Science Officer Un said, her large eyes blinking rapidly behind her protective face shield. The entire crew wore radiation suits even though they were safely inside their vessel. Such was their fear of the yellow star humans called the Sun. "Run the tests again," Captain Sung ordered, though he knew the results would be the same. Their scanners had been working perfectly during their entire journey through 3 star systems. Un adjusted several controls and waited. "Confirmed, Captain. The radiation levels on the planet's surface would kill a Clary in less than 60 seconds of exposure." The bridge fell silent. Their mission of galactic exploration had led them to many worlds, but none where the native species thrived in what the Clary considered lethal conditions. "Show me the surface again," Sung requested. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a park in a city the humans called Seoul. The Clary crew gasped collectively. Humans of all ages walked freely under the blazing sun. Some wore minimal clothing, deliberately exposing their skin to the deadly radiation. Children played in open areas with no protection. Elderly humans sat on benches, faces tilted upward to catch the sun's rays. "They're not just surviving," whispered Navigator Gil. "They're enjoying it." "Impossible," muttered Un. "Their cells should be rupturing. Their DNA should be shredding apart." Captain Sung leaned forward, fascinated despite his horror. "Magnify that group there." The image zoomed in on a family having what humans called a picnic. They sat on a blanket, eating and laughing, occasionally wiping sweat from their brows but showing no signs of radiation sickness or burns. "They have some protection," Medical Officer G noted. "See the white substance they're applying to their skin? And those eye coverings somewhere. But it's minimal compared to what would be needed for our survival." Captain Sung made his decision. "We came to find new life and new civilizations. These humans are unlike any species we've encountered. They've evolved an immunity to radiation that could rewrite our understanding of biology." He turned to Communications Officer Wu. "Prepare a first contact message. Follow Protocol 3, establish communication from orbit before attempting any physical meeting." Wu hesitated. "Sir, should we really expose ourselves to creatures who can withstand such hostile conditions? What other abilities might they possess?" The question hung in the air. The Clary had evolved on a world of shadows and gentle light. Their skin could photosynthesize the dim rays of their red dwarf star. Direct sunlight was death to them. "Your concern is noted," Sung replied. "But consider this: a species that evolved under such harsh conditions yet developed art, music, and technology similar to our own may have much to teach us." As they prepared the message, their scanners detected a small human craft rising from Earth's surface. "They've seen us," Un reported. "Their vessel appears to be a scientific research craft. They're approaching slowly." "Open a channel," Captain Sung ordered. His heart raced. This would be the first contact between their civilizations. The screen flickered again, and a human face appeared. The Clary crew flinched at seeing a creature that could walk under deadly radiation yet look so similar to themselves: 2 eyes, a central nose, a mouth for speaking. "This is Dr. Su of the International Space Agency," the human said in her language, which their computers quickly translated. "We welcome you to Earth. We've been monitoring your vessel since it entered our solar system." Captain Sung stepped forward. "I am Captain Sung of the Clary exploration vessel Twilight Shadow. We come in peace and seek knowledge." Dr. Su smiled, showing flat teeth unlike the Clary's pointed ones. "We are happy to share knowledge. Would you like to dock with our space station for face-to-face talks?" Sung glanced at his crew's nervous faces. "We cannot yet meet in person. Your solar radiation levels are lethal to our kind." Dr. Su's expression changed to surprise, then fascination. "You're vulnerable to sunlight? How remarkable. Our scientists will be very interested to learn about your physiology." As ours are to learn about yours, Sung replied. The fact that your kind walks freely under such strong ultraviolet radiation is astonishing to us. Something so ordinary to us is extraordinary to you, Dr. Su said thoughtfully. This will be the beginning of a fascinating exchange between our worlds. As the conversation continued, Captain Sung realized this mission would be remembered in Clari history for generations. The humans' invulnerability to sunlight was just the beginning of what they might learn from each other. After 3 weeks of orbital communications, the Clari and humans established a special laboratory on Earth's moon. The facility featured radiation shielding that made it safe for the Clari scientists to work alongside their human counterparts without their heavy protective suits. Dr. Jean unpacked his equipment with careful, six-fingered hands. The specialized microscopes and analyzers had traveled across light years to reach this moment. He glanced nervously at the Earth hanging in the black sky outside the lab's window. Even from this distance, the sunlight reflecting off the blue planet made him uneasy. Are you settling in well? Asked Dr. Yuna, the human biologist assigned to work with him. She wore a simple white lab coat, her black hair pulled back neatly. Yes, thank you, Dr. Jean replied, his translator converting his high-pitched clicks into human speech. Though I still find it strange to be so close to your son without feeling ill. Dr. Yuna smiled. And I find it amazing that light can harm you so easily. Our bodies are remarkably different. They had begun their work with simple tests. The humans provided skin, blood, and tissue samples, which the Clari analyzed with increasing wonder. Dr. Jean peered through his microscope at a slice of human skin tissue. The melanin structures are fascinating, he said. When exposed to ultraviolet light, the cells actually create more protection rather than breaking down. His research partner, Dr. Hay, nodded as she studied her own samples. And their DNA repair mechanisms work continuously. The damage that would be fatal to us is fixed almost instantly in their cells. Dr. Yuna leaned over to look at their notes. We evolved these traits over millions of years. The human ancestors who could withstand more sunlight survived longer and had more children. But the radiation should have prevented life from forming in the first place, Dr. Hay said, her purple face creased with concentration. It damages proteins, disrupts cellular functions. Yet here we are, said Dr. Yuna, spreading her arms. Living proof that life adapts to even the harshest conditions. Their research expanded daily. The Clari shared their advanced scanning technology, while the humans provided expertise on radiation biology that their species had studied for centuries. One day, Dr. Jean was examining a human blood sample when he made a discovery. Dr. Yuna! Come quickly, he called, his voice high with excitement. She hurried over. What is it? Your white blood cells, he said, pointing to the screen. They don't just resist radiation damage, they seem to harness the energy from it in some cases. Look at this cell here. When exposed to low levels of ultraviolet light, it actually becomes more efficient at fighting infections. Dr. Yuna frowned. That's not in our medical literature. Are you sure? Our equipment is designed to detect energy transfers at the quantum level, Dr. Jean explained. Your instruments might not be sensitive enough to notice this effect. This discovery led to new experiments. The Clari scientists were particularly interested in testing human samples under different radiation conditions. During one such test, Ambassador Su visited the Moon Lab to observe their progress. He watched as Dr. Jean carefully exposed a human skin sample to simulated sunlight. Remarkable, the ambassador said. On our world, that much light would cause immediate cellular breakdown. Dr. Jean nodded. Yet the human skin absorbs it, processes it, and even uses it to create vitamin D. What would kill us nourishes them. Ambassador Su turned to Dr. Yuna. Do your people truly understand how extraordinary this ability is? She laughed softly. No more than fish understand how extraordinary it is to breathe water. It's simply our normal. That evening, as the Earth scientists returned to their quarters, Dr. Jean and Dr. Hay continued working. They had developed a theory they were eager to test. If we can understand how human cells repair radiation damage, Dr. Hay said, we might develop treatments for our own people. Dr. Jean carefully mixed compounds in a test tube. Imagine Clary children playing under open skies. Imagine our people traveling to worlds we never dreamed possible. Their work continued deep into the lunar night. Using human genetic material as a template, they created synthetic proteins that mimic the radiation-resistant properties. When they applied these proteins to Clary tissue samples, the results were promising. The treated cells survived radiation exposure 5 times longer than untreated ones. Dr. Jean recorded their findings with trembling hands. "This is just the beginning," he told Dr. Hay. "What humans take for granted may someday give our people the stars." As they worked, Earth rose on the lunar horizon, beautiful and blue. For the first time, Dr. Jean looked at it not with fear but with hope. The invulnerability that humans had evolved might someday be shared, opening new possibilities for both their worlds. 6 months after first contact, the cultural exchange program between humans and Clary began in earnest. A special facility was built in northern Finland, where the long winter nights provided a safe environment for the Clary visitors. Cultural attaché Mun was among the first to volunteer for the extended Earth mission. Mun stood in the dim gallery, his protective suit much lighter than the early models. The Clary scientists had made rapid progress in developing radiation shields based on human biology. Though he still couldn't go outdoors during daylight, he could now move comfortably in properly shielded buildings. "What do you think of the exhibition?" asked Professor Bay, his human guide. Mun tilted his head, studying the landscape paintings that lined the walls. "I notice how much human art celebrates light. Sunrises, sunsets, the play of light on water, things that would terrify my people are your greatest beauty." Professor Bay nodded. "I never considered how much light shapes our perception of beauty. For us, shadows are just the absence of light. For your people, shadows are safety. In Clary poetry, darkness is comfort," Mun explained. "Our most romantic tales take place in gentle twilight. Our heroes find sanctuary in caves and forests." They moved to the next room, where photographs showed humans in various activities under the sun, farmers harvesting crops, children playing in parks, families at beaches. "Even your recreation involves exposing yourselves to radiation," Mun observed. "You lie on beaches specifically to absorb more sunlight." "We call it sunbathing," Professor Bay said with a smile. "Too much is harmful even for us, but in moderation, it helps our bodies produce vitamin D and improves our mood." "Improves your mood?" Mun's large eyes widened. "Radiation exposure creates positive emotions for humans? Many people experience sadness during long dark winters. We call it seasonal affective disorder. Light therapy is one treatment." This revelation fascinated Mun. The Clary temperament was naturally cautious and contemplative, traits evolved from a species that survived by avoiding danger. Could the human boldness, their willingness to explore and take risks, be tied to their radiation resistance? That evening, the cultural exchange continued with a musical performance. Human musicians played while images of landscapes were projected on the walls. Mun noticed how the lighting brightened during triumphant passages and dimmed during melancholy ones. "Your brains associate brightness with positive emotions," he whispered to Professor Bay. "For us, brightness creates fear." After the concert, Mun shared Clary music with the human audience. The soft, complex melodies used ultrasonic tones that humans could barely perceive. The lighting remained dim throughout the performance, creating an atmosphere Clary would find comforting. "It's beautiful," Professor Bay said afterward. "Like nothing I've heard before. The melody feels like it's flowing around me rather than moving in a straight line." "Our music reflects our world," Mun explained. "Sound travels differently in our thicker atmosphere, bouncing between surfaces, creating natural echoes. We compose to include these reflections." As days turned to weeks, Mun began to see connections between human resilience to sunlight and their cultural perspectives. Humans embraced change, sought new horizons, and believed in progress. The Clary valued tradition, stability, and careful advancement. Both approaches had strengths, both had flaws. One evening, Mun asked to see human religious texts. Professor Bay brought digital copies of several major works. I noticed that light symbolism appears in almost all human religions, Mun said after reading for hours. Enlightenment, divine light, beings of light. And darkness often represents ignorance or evil, Professor Bay acknowledged. I imagine Clary spirituality is quite different. Our creation story tells of the first shadow, which protected early life from the burning stars, Mun explained. We don't fear darkness, we fear the absence of shadows. Their cultural exchange extended to food, architecture, and social customs. Mun was particularly interested in human celebrations. Many of your holidays involve light, he observed. Candles, lanterns, fireworks. And your holidays? Professor Bay asked. We celebrate the longest night of the year, when our world is safest from our sun's radiation. Families gather in deep cave systems to share stories and renew bonds. One night, Professor Bay arranged a special surprise. With permission from Clary medical staff, she took Mun to an observatory where the northern lights were visible. Mun stood in awe as green and purple waves danced across the night sky. It's radiation, he whispered, but so beautiful. Sometimes the most fearsome things can also be wondrous, Professor Bay said softly. As the lights shifted overhead, Mun understood that the exchange between their species was about more than biology or technology. They were learning different ways to see the universe, through light and through shadow, each perspective revealing truths the other might miss. The warning came without much time to prepare. Earth's solar monitoring satellites detected a massive eruption on the sun's surface, sending a cloud of charged particles racing toward the planet. For humans, it meant increased aurora activity and possible communications disruptions. For the 12 Clary visitors at the Finland research facility, it meant potential death. Commander Khan rushed into the common room where Clary Ambassador Yoon was sharing a meal with several human scientists. The commander's face was tight with concern. We have a situation, he announced. A solar flare will hit Earth's atmosphere in approximately 3 hours. Radiation levels will spike to 300% of normal for up to 48 hours. The Clary instantly froze. Their purple skin paled to a sickly lavender. Our protection suits aren't designed for those levels, Ambassador Yoon said, her voice barely audible. Even indoors, the radiation will penetrate. Commander Khan nodded grimly. We've already begun emergency preparations. Chief Engineer Du is converting the basement storage area into a radiation-safe zone. The humans moved quickly, their faces showing determination rather than panic. Dr. Hoon began gathering medical supplies while others retrieved lead shielding materials from the research lab. Ambassador Yoon and her fellow Clary huddled together, radiating fear. Even with their improved protective suits, they had never faced radiation levels this high. On their home planet, they would retreat to underground caverns during solar events far milder than this one. Will the basement be enough? Asked cultural attaché Mun, his large eyes blinking rapidly in distress. We'll make it enough, Commander Khan replied firmly. Our engineers are already working on additional shielding. In the basement, Chief Engineer Du directed a team installing lead panels over the walls. Others were setting up emergency power systems and air filtration. The radiation will penetrate the upper floors, she explained to the Clary scientists who had come to observe. But each level it passes through will weaken it. By the time it reaches the basement, the lead shielding should reduce it to safe levels for your physiology. Dr. Jean, the Clary biologist, looked at the radiation meters they had brought from their ship. Even a 1% leak could be harmful with exposure over 48 hours. Engineer Du wiped sweat from her forehead. Then we'll aim for 0.1% leakage. We've dealt with radiation containment before. As humans rushed about preparing the shelter, Ambassador Yoon watched with growing wonder. These creatures, who walked freely under deadly radiation daily, were now working frantically to protect visitors from a threat they themselves barely noticed. You're risking yourselves for us, she said quietly to Commander Kong as he checked a radiation meter. He looked up, surprised. Of course we are. You're our guests. But the work you're doing, handling lead materials, exposing yourselves to the tools, it's dangerous for humans too, isn't it? Commander Kong shrugged. Less dangerous than it is for you to be here during the flare. We'll take precautions. 2 hours later, the shelter was ready. The Clary visitors moved into the basement space, carrying only essential belongings. The humans had transformed the cold storage room into a livable area with sleeping cots, food supplies, and even some entertainment systems. "We'll maintain communication through these tablets," Engineer Du explained, handing out devices to each Clary. "Someone will be monitoring from the control room at all times. If you need anything or notice any problems with the shielding, alert us immediately." As the humans prepared to leave, Dr. Jean suddenly moved forward. "Wait," he called. He retrieved a small case from his belongings and removed several vials of blue liquid. "This is our prototype radiation treatment," he explained. "It's based on the human cellular protection mechanisms we've been studying. It hasn't been fully tested, but it might help if..." He didn't finish the sentence. Commander Kong accepted the vials carefully. "Thank you. We'll keep them ready, but I'm confident they won't be needed." As the heavy lead door closed, sealing the Clary in their protective chamber, Ambassador Yoon felt a strange mix of fear and gratitude. On their homeworld, the idea of creatures who could withstand deadly radiation had been the stuff of horror stories. Now, those same radiation-resistant beings were their protectors. Above ground, the humans gathered in the control room to monitor both the approaching solar flare and the radiation levels in the basement shelter. "Readings are steady," reported Engineer Du. "The shielding is holding." Commander Kong nodded, his eyes on the radiation meters. "Now we wait." Outside, the sky began to glow with unusual colors as the first particles from the solar flare reached Earth's atmosphere. What would be deadly danger for the Clary was transforming into a beautiful light show for human eyes, another reminder of how differently their species had evolved. In the shelter below, Ambassador Yoon and her team huddled near their own meters, watching the numbers rise slowly but stay within safe parameters. In the care of creatures who breathed radiation like air, they were learning the true meaning of safety. The solar flare crisis had passed 2 months ago, but it marked a turning point in human-Clary relations. What had begun as scientific curiosity had transformed into deep mutual respect. The Clary had seen humans risk themselves to protect visitors who feared what humans considered ordinary. The humans had gained new appreciation for adaptations they'd always taken for granted. In the special laboratory outside Seoul, Clary scientist Ho stood nervously at the edge where shadow met sunlight. Around him, a team of human and Clary scientists waited in tense silence. The moment they had worked toward for months had arrived. "Final systems check," called Dr. Mi, the human scientist who had led the project. "Radiation shield levels?" 99.8% filtration confirmed, replied her assistant, checking the monitors. Ho wore what looked like a second skin, a flexible, silver-blue bodysuit that covered him from head to toe. Even his large eyes were protected behind specially designed goggles. The suit represented the culmination of both species' scientific knowledge, Clary technology merged with biological principles derived from human DNA. "How do you feel?" Dr. Mi asked him softly. "Terrified," Ho admitted. His 6-fingered hands trembled slightly. No Clary has ever willingly exposed themselves to direct sunlight. Captain Sung, who had led the first contact mission, stepped forward. "You don't have to do this. The simulations confirm the suit works." Ho shook his head. "Simulations aren't enough. If we truly want to explore beyond our shadow world, someone must take the first step." The laboratory had a special section with a retractable roof. Currently closed, it would open to expose a small area to natural sunlight. The rest of the space remains safely shielded for the other Clary observers. Dr. Mi checked her tablet one last time. "The suit will allow you 10 minutes of direct exposure. After that, the protective films begin to degrade." Ho nodded. "I understand." "Opening roof panel to 25%, called the technician. With a mechanical hum, a section of the ceiling slid open. A beam of afternoon sunlight cut through the air, creating a bright square on the laboratory floor. Ho stared at it as if facing an ancient predator. "Remember your breathing techniques," Dr. Mi said gently. "Your vital signs are being monitored continuously." Ho took several deep breaths, the special filters in his mask processing the air. Then, with deliberate slowness, he moved his foot forward until it touched the edge of the light. The assembled scientists fell silent. For a Clary to willingly move towards sunlight went against every instinct their species had evolved over millions of years. Ho paused, then stepped fully into the beam of light. For a moment, he stood frozen, eyes wide behind his protective goggles. The sunlight bathed his suited form, reflecting off the silver-blue material. "Ho!" Dr. Me called anxiously. "Are you all right?" "It's warm," he whispered in wonder. "Not burning. Not painful. Just warm." The monitoring equipment showed his vital signs were elevated but stable. The suit was working as designed, filtering out the harmful radiation while allowing him to experience direct sunlight for the first time. Slowly, Ho raised his hands, turning them in the light, watching how it played across the protective material. Then he looked up toward the open roof panel and the blue sky beyond. "I can see why humans love this," he said, his voice filled with awe. "The quality of light is so different from artificial sources. So alive." From the shadowed observation area, Ambassador Yoon watched with tears in her eyes. After the solar flare incident, she had become the strongest advocate for this project. Now, seeing a member of her species standing in sunlight, something that had been impossible throughout their entire evolutionary history, she felt a profound shift in her understanding of the universe. For 5 minutes, Ho moved carefully within the sunlit square, conducting simple tests and describing his sensations. The suit maintained optimal temperature and protection levels. How do humans do this every day without thinking, he wondered aloud. Standing under this power, this energy, it should feel dangerous. Dr. Me smiled. The same way you navigate in near darkness that would leave humans stumbling and blind. We each evolved for our environments. As the 10-minute mark approached, Ho reluctantly moved back toward the shadow. When he stepped out of the light, the Clary observers broke into their species' version of applause, a rhythmic clicking sound made with their secondary vocal chambers. Captain Sung approached Ambassador Su, who had observed the historic moment with quiet pride. "Your people walk under this power daily without thought," he said. "What humans consider ordinary, the galaxy finds extraordinary." Ambassador Su nodded. "And what Clary consider ordinary, navigating by sound echoes, seeing ultraviolet patterns, feeling magnetic fields, humans find equally extraordinary. Together, we perceive more of the universe than either species could alone." As the roof panel closed, Ho carefully removed his helmet. His purple face was flushed with excitement, his eyes bright. "I stood in sunlight," he said simply, his voice filled with wonder. "Our children won't believe it was once impossible." The laboratory erupted in celebration, humans and Clary together marking a moment when boundaries between their worlds began to dissolve, not through the elimination of differences, but through the sharing of adaptations that made each species unique.